Take it away, sir.
I'm ready. Thanks. Thanks so much, Jeff, for getting us set up. This is Jeff Flood. He is our administrative and technical support, and greatly appreciate all your hard work to get us here, Jeff. We're using the WebEx platform, and I apologize up front for any confusion. We're required to use the WebEx platform because this is a public meeting, and it provides us the access that the public needs in a secure fashion and the ability to record it as well. So we'll be on this platform for all future meetings. Thanks to everyone for being here. Greatly appreciate your time and your patience as we get started. We've learned our first lesson, and we'll be able to apply those to the next meeting. The thrust of this meeting, the purpose of this meeting is introduction of everybody who's in the subcommittee, and also those who are joining us this morning, as well as a brief orientation to the work and sort of setting a path ahead. Before we begin, I mentioned this is a public meeting. Public meetings of this nature are required to be done in person, but we have an exception due to the pandemic. And before I go to the next step, as we move forward, we'll employ Robert's Rules of Order. And what I'm going to do next is read a statement, and I'll be looking for a motion to continue with the meeting relative to the requirements or the explanation of that statement next. And then I'll be looking for a second afterward. I'm going to try and share my screen here so you can see what I'll be reading.
Let me make you prepared.
And I'll go with it. Under the current state of emergency, it is impractical or unsafe for the Technical Advisory Committee to assemble in a single location, and that the purpose of the meeting is to discuss or transact the business necessary to continue operations of the TAC or subcommittee, in our case, the subcommittee being the Federal Installations Partnership Subcommittee, and the discharge of its lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities under Executive Order 71. And what this is saying is that we concur to hold this meeting virtually instead of in person. May I get a motion that we hold this meeting virtually?
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Please enter into the record that the nature of the emergency is the COVID-19 pandemic, and that this meeting is being held by electronic means, and the platform is WebEx. And I'll take a moment to thank Kevin Du Bois for taking our notes this morning. And next, Jeff will move us into introductions. I'm going to flash that next slide for introductions. As was mentioned in the minutes, we'd like to get to know everybody. Please give your name, your organization. We put down specialty, but what are you bringing to the table as part of the group? Why were you chosen to come, and a little bit about your background. And everyone who has been invited for two reasons: for your background and your knowledge, of course, but also what networks come with you to this work group. Jeff, please take it away.
Thanks, Tom. I'll just be very brief. My name is Jeff Flood. I'm a coastal planner with the Virginia Coastal Zone Management Program. We are housed at DEQ in Richmond, and we have been tapped by the governor via executive order to assist the Secretary of Natural Resources Office in the development of this Coastal Resilience Master Plan. And that is why I'm here in part today, to help with this meeting and to help Tom lead the charge. So I'll turn it over to, I'll actually really just go down the list quickly here, make it easy. We have Rear Admiral Ann Phillips on the call.
Good morning, everyone. Ann Phillips, Special to the Governor for Coastal Adaptation and Protection. I think I know all of you and have spoken with all of you prior to at least in whole or in part. What I bring to the table is the responsibility on behalf of the governor for creating a coastal master plan and process, more important, a master plan process that will withstand the test of administration's time and all the other vagaries that seem to pull Virginia off course on occasion. Thank you all for your willingness to serve in this capacity to get us pointed fair, and I'm using a lot of nautical terms here because there's a few people who actually get them, and into clear water and making progress. So again, thank you all. I am not a subcommittee member, but I will sit in on as many meetings as I can in the context of understanding what you are doing and what you think is of value as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Admiral.
Thanks so much. Next, we have Rear Admiral Craig Quigley.
Good morning, all. My name is Craig Quigley. I'm the Executive Director of the Hampton Roads Military and Federal Facilities Alliance, or better known as HRMFA. Our charter is to attract, retain, and grow federal facilities to Hampton Roads. So the networks that we principally operate within include the leadership of the federal facilities in the region, Secretary Hopkins' office, excuse me, at the state level, and the congressional delegation as well, to influence federal legislation to achieve those objectives that I just mentioned before. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Admiral.
Thanks so much. Next, Emily Steinhilber.
Good morning. Emily Steinhilber. I'm an assistant research professor and director of special projects at ODU, and I also represent the Commonwealth Center for Current Flooding Resiliency, a partnership between VIMS, the Virginia Coastal Policy Center, and ODU. And as the only university rep on this committee, I hope to be able to connect what we're doing here with what all of the universities and the studies subcommittee will be focusing on as well.
Thanks so much, Emily. Next up, Erin Sutton.
Hi, I'm Erin Sutton. I'm the Chief Deputy State Coordinator for the Virginia Department of Emergency Management. And truly the connection point, just for situational awareness, I came into VDEM in October. Prior to that, I was the Virginia Beach Emergency Manager. So very familiar with all the work going on with the federal installation projects. But also as the Chief Deputy with VDEM, we house the state's hazard mitigation plan and manage the mitigation funding, especially the new program, the BRIC funding program. And while federal installations don't necessarily qualify for that, I think the connection points that we make moving forward will be important with the installations.
Great. I believe we have Kevin Du Bois on as well.
Hi, my name is Kevin Du Bois. I'm the DoD Chesapeake Bay Program Coordinator. And what that means is I coordinate the activities of 60 DoD installations at about 130 different properties scattered throughout the watershed. And within that portfolio, we work on land conservation activities and climate resilience.
Great. We have Colonel Patrick Kinsman on, I believe, too.
Yeah, hey team, Pat Kinsman here, Norfolk District Commander, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Honored to be a part of the team. I guess I want to thank Ann again for the 3 different subcommittees, but I've added kind of a working level member. So Tom Emmerich, my chief counsel, is going to be participating in this committee. I've got 2 other civilian professionals that'll do the finance and the project evaluation committees as well, because I will rotate out, this summer and be backfilled by another Army engineer colonel coming in. But I really think that's an important effort. Anybody, can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Okay, and I think the networks really, so we do military construction on a lot of the Army and Air Force bases here in Virginia, in the Commonwealth. And then also on the civil work side, we work with a lot of the municipalities on kind of water-related projects as well, in addition to doing kind of large feasibility studies for coastal storm risk management. So this is a great committee. It's an important effort because we have a lot of federal installations, as we all know, here in the Hampton Roads area. So That's all.
Great, thank you. Sharon Baxter.
Good morning. I'm here in David Taylor's place. He got up with the General Assembly, and I represent the Department of Environmental Quality. So we obviously have a statewide purview and all the regulatory programs. We probably connect with all the federal facilities via those, but also our partnership programs. Jeff mentioned the Coastal Zone Management Program is located at DEQ, and we also do NEPA reviews. So we interact with federal facilities on a variety of levels. And I will mention we most related to the regulatory side, we kind of recreated or reinvigorated a DoD, EPA, DEQ partnership about 2 years ago that meets semi-annually with all of the DoD installations in the state. So that might be a network to connect with here.
Thanks so much, Sharon. I've added two new folks as panelists. Sam Stevens should be able to.
Hey, okay.
Yep.
I've been unmuted. There we go. I had two phones on. Thanks. There we go. Technology. My Coast Guard workstation wouldn't allow me to work in, so I'm here on my mobile device. Hi, Sam Stevens. I'm with the Coast Guard. I'm at Sector Virginia, which is down in Portsmouth. I'm the sector commander, which really oversees maritime operations for the greater Port of Virginia. And my interest here is really nascent, noob, if you will. My personal and installation operations interest is in looking at where I can tie in to coastal resilience and coastal master planning from an installation and operations continuity perspective here, as my building and my operations hub really is at the lowest lying level of base Portsmouth. I believe via a call yesterday with some other colleagues, including Admiral and Tom, that the connection that I can bring with some other Coast Guard infrastructure planners will be key to this element for the long haul approach ahead. So pleased to be here, and again, really in learn mode and see where I can contribute. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Commander. We have Scott Spencer as well.
Good morning, Scott Spencer. I'm the Office of Economic Adjustment formerly. I'm the Deputy Program Director for the Military Installation Sustainability Program. More importantly, in 2019, we got an authority for Military Installation Resilience Program, which we kicked off in 2020. I'm also the project manager specifically for an effort that's just starting out in Northern Virginia around Quantico, Fort Belvoir, and Joint Base Myers-Henderson Hall, looking at installation resiliency.
Excellent. We have Stephen Moret. Apologies for getting that wrong.
Good morning. Yes, Stephen Moret. I'm the president of the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. Good to be with you all this morning.
Yeah, and Tom Emmerich, Army Corps.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Glad to be here and part of the team. Colonel Kinsman mentioned me earlier. I work for Colonel Kinsman at the Army Corps of Engineers Norfolk District. I'm the district council. I think what I may bring to the table is knowledge of authorities regarding civil works projects, military construction, coastal storm risk management, and kind of the network I could maybe take advantage of, as I also have a team of attorneys that also are knowledgeable about such authorities. It's also, I'm a retired Coast Guard officer. I know we have some a retired Coast Guard officer leading this, Tom Krabs, and good to see Captain Stevens from Sector Hampton Roads. But good to be part of the team.
Good to have you on board, Tom.
Thanks so much. And we have Whitney Catchmore.
Good morning, everybody. I work for the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. I run the Water Resources Department. Previous to that, I worked for NAPAC. We've worked on a whole bunch of endeavors with both the Corps and with joint land use studies with Tom's predecessor. Our sort of network is the 17 localities in Hampton Roads, and then a number of other partners that we have worked with on many endeavors related to resiliency. So thanks.
All right. Well, I'll give a second we have a couple folks here that I don't recognize as subcommittee members, but if I can unmute them one at a time just to see if they have anything. If it's a public comment, we would like to save that towards the end of this discussion. But we have Joanne here. I just want to say hello. And Chambers, and then Madison Teeter and Stephanie Hansen. So I'll give it just a second here.
Hi, this is Madison Teeter. I'm just here with Wetlands Watch, just taking some notes for our own purposes and just excited that these meetings have started.
Thanks so much. I'm gonna go put you back. Anything else?
Oh, hi, this is Stephanie Hansen. I work for Brown & Caldwell. I'm just here listening in. I work with Kevin Dubois on the DoD Chesapeake Bay program support, and excited to hear what's going on. We also support the REC meetings that I heard were mentioned, the REC DEQ and EPA program as well. So thanks.
And all right, well, I think turn it over to Tom here, the next step of the agenda here, to give sort of an overview of the subcommittee duties, tasks, purpose, alignment, etc.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. And I'll introduce myself. Tom Krabs. I am the military liaison. I work for the Secretary of Veterans and Defense Affairs, Secretary Hopkins. And my related networks that I reach are within the state agencies, federal relationships, and most certainly the military installations. I am learning quickly. I'd say primarily as your chair. I'm my best benefit is keeping the trains moving on time, helping with those relationships where I can, and learning as we go. So thank you very much for your time here today and as we move forward. I'm trying to advance this slide. Can you see it? Okay. In our introductions, I think we all recognized the urgency and the purpose and the importance of including our federal installations, because if we don't, there'll be a gap. I just flashed a quick map of the Hampton Roads area. I think you're very familiar with that map and how much of the space is actually occupied by federal installations, and the importance that comes with including them. But I'll move right on to the other more important work at hand, or as important work at hand, the alignment of where we are relative to the Coastal Resilience Master Plan and the effort going on. What you see before you is an org chart that shows the other subcommittees that are in place. You may already be aware of these, but project identification, project evaluation, finance, you can read what those are. The point here in this slide is that federal installations partnerships will be able to inform the other, and I think will be important in informing the other subcommittees who are at work. And I encourage collaboration with those as we go, and we'll look for those opportunities of collaboration. And I realize that many of you are members of these other groups already, so we'll probably be looking to leverage you as we go to make sure that we are collaborating well with the other subcommittees, working towards a whole of solution as we go that informs the Coastal Resilience Master Plan. Any questions where alignment is concerned? Thank you. And in the interest of time, so I'll move on to this slide. We have to do our COIA and FOIA training coming up, and that we are just about on that mark. But I present this slide to shape our way forward. And this is a lot of back of the napkin stuff with myself and a couple of other phone calls with some of you on the panel. Whitney, thank you very much for your phone call yesterday and for serving as our vice chair. At the top of this slide, what you see is I'll call it a problem statement right out of the planning framework. And I think the most important part for us is after the last comma, optimal alignment. That we don't have optimal alignment now. And if you move on to the arrow to the left of the slide, where federal installations are concerned, that top bullet, and again, these words can be changed around, awareness. As we approach our federal installations, understanding the stakes that those federal installations have, their capabilities, their limitations, organic resources that are at hand now, the risk that they perceive and that they contend with, and the measures of mitigation that are already in place or that are in view in the future, or viewed as future mitigation. And really, where are those gaps that the federal installations have now as they look at this large problem set ahead with resilience? And being able to incorporate those elements that I just mentioned, and there are plenty more that the federal installations have at hand and are wrestling with now. How do we incorporate those into the whole of the effort ahead? And then you'll see at the bottom of the arrow, local, regional, and state efforts, awareness of what those are, incorporation of what those efforts and those resources are, so that we leverage them all together toward sustained shared understanding, unity of effort, and overall solving that last part of that problem set, alignment of federal installations, local, regional, and state efforts towards resilience. In doing that, we meet the goal number 4 within the framework at the bottom of the slide. So I just wanted to set that as a discussion point. We don't have much time to discuss, I'm afraid, and I apologize for that. But that is how, as we move forward, we'll project. And as I thought about it, we've got one line of effort now assigned, and that is to strengthen relationships with the Department of Defense. I think there are plenty more, and I'd just like to take a moment to see if there are any suggested lines of effort under our charter as the federal installations partnerships that come to mind. And I'll open the floor quickly for that.
Hey, Tom, this is Craig. Certainly in sheer numbers and economic impact, the DoD installations in the Commonwealth are the most significant. But I don't think we could ignore things like the Hampton VA Medical Center, NASA Langley, the National Park Service, other federal installations that are not within the Defense Department, but are also on the water, and they're in this same circumstance.
Thank you, sir. And that brings me to the next point in the agenda, membership, and that really is, who are we missing? And you just did a great job of answering that. Would anybody else like to suggest who else should be at this table? Who are we missing from the subcommittee that has reached to networks that we need to inform our efforts? All right.
Hey, Tom, in the silence, Pat Kinsman, in the silence here again, I'm looking at the slide, and I know you talked about a lot, but I'm still kind of looking for the clear purpose of the subcommittee, right? And is it a short-term purpose, so it's going to be over the next year, or are we talking about, multiple decades of work? Can you speak about what really our focus is?
Thank you, Colonel. I'll tell you what, I think the two most important words on that slide are sustained and alignment. And in between sustained and alignment is shared understanding and unity of effort. And I see that the federal installations, that partnership will extend and be complementary to the local, regional, and state. They'll be braided in as one whole effort, and it's not something that will go away. We'll be contending with these resiliency challenges, and it needs to be a sustained effort. And a good example of threats to the sustainment is, for instance, you'll be transferring out this summer. With you, as you go, we need the relationships to remain in place. So through our efforts, we solve gaps such as PCS transfers for the military and the like. But there are far more. There are myriad examples of gaps in relationships that we'll need to cover to ensure that we have a sustained effort, sustained partnerships between the federal installations that occupy so much of our coastal region, particularly in Hampton Roads. But if you go up the Potomac River, mid-Potomac and Northern Reach, you see the same types of area that federal installations occupy, and we have them on the Eastern Shore. So to answer the question more briefly, sustainment and alignment. This is not something that will go away after we're done. It's something that we expect to continue into the future and stay in place.
And I just, that's, again, the discussion over clarifying our purpose, I think, is important at the very beginning. And certainly I've been, accused, I say that, of taking on a too big a bite. And so we know the Commonwealth's got a big bite. We're trying to get something done by December. So if our purpose is, very much linked to work to get done, something by December, right? That's got to be crystal clear in how we're operating. So anyway, we're off to a good start.
I agree, and we need a clear mission statement and understanding, a concise understanding of what we're achieving and lines of efforts under that. And we'll be reaching out from here to achieve just that. I wanted to set this on the table for just such a discussion, and I appreciate your input there. We're going to need to move on to our COIA and FOIA training next. Is there anything else relative to this slide and this discussion point before we move on? Great. I will finish with Colonel. Thanks for bringing up that timeline. That bottom line in this section of our agenda is timeline, and it is tight. It's within this year, and we'll flesh that out more in future meetings. All right, Jeff, are we set up with Justin Bell?
Yes, Justin Bell with the Office of the Attorney General has called in, and I'm about to unmute him to say hello and answer any questions from the FOIA training. I'd sent out the recording of that from several of the subcommittee chairs and staff had been trained this past Friday, the 12th, February 12th. So hopefully you all had a chance to look at that recording. It is imperative that we are operating on the same page regarding the protocols for FOIA and COIA. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions, and I can provide you with Justin's information as well. So let me unmute Justin. Justin, you're unmuted. Welcome.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Great. I'm Justin Bell with the Attorney General's office, and I am here. I got a reputation a couple of years ago as being really good at these trainings. So I kind of tour the Commonwealth digitally now, giving these trainings. And I understand you have the video of the last training I gave to just the chairs. I also want to say that we only have I think 15 minutes here, so I'm not going to be able to go through them both here today. But both the Conflicts of Interest Act Council and Freedom of Information Act Council websites have additional training supplements and videos and online modules. So if you really feel like you're not getting them, or you're concerned that you didn't attach, and some of us need to hear it 2-3 times, that's totally fine. You can either contact me or go straight there and ask. You explain your situation and ask for the online training. And if you really want, we can do a follow-up training down the road sometime. I've been doing this for about 6 years, and there's still things that I learn or my understanding of COIA and FOIA change over time. So if you're feeling like maybe it's not quite attaching just yet, that's perfectly normal. Just do your best, try to understand it, be better tomorrow than you are today. Okay. Let me ask Mr. Flood here. Are you looking kind of just for a Q&A session here, or you're looking for me just to hit high points? What exactly are you envisioning here?
Just some brief high points, and maybe a question here. So just to kind of trivia, to test folks if they have watched the recording. I understand if folks did not have a chance to do that. So just some high points and maybe a case study, an example of something where we might get caught up in something.
Okay. From what I understand, TAC is not going to be doing much by way of contracting or transactions, but I feel like I need to make you aware that you can't have a personal interest in a contract or a transaction, and you're going to have to look up what a personal interest is. But it's not too far away from what you're thinking it might be. Are you part of an organization? Do you draw more than $5,000 from an organization? Or and I also want to make you aware that COIA, the Conflicts Act, is not just about actual connections and actual influence. It's about the appearance thereof. So sometimes the standard is that it might look like it. Like it might be reasonably concluded that you might be too connected to it. So you got to be hyper alert about that. Luckily, I don't think in this body you're going to be giving out grants or $1 million contracts. So you're probably not going to be in that realm. But you never know. So you need to be alert. So you definitely have to read the Conflicts Act cover to cover. Legally, you're required to. So yeah, just clear out an hour this weekend for your favorite beverage and just power through it. And if you have follow-up questions, you can take one of the steps that I mentioned before. I probably won't cover too much more about COIA. I will say that you be alert about gifts. If this is a family friend, a close friend that you've had for years, it's more likely that any gifts would be fine. We're only talking about gifts that are over $20 or in aggregate of $100 over a year. So if you were talking about a family friend giving you a gift, it can be a pretty large gift and it's not really going to be a problem. We're talking about gifts from people who might be looking to influence how your recommendations to the governor might go. We're talking about gifts that might be from a lobbyist or somebody who's retained a lobbyist or working for a lobbyist, or maybe a CEO of a company or the CFO of an organization that might be trying to gain a little favor with you. That's what we're trying to avoid is getting caught up with gifts and arrangements with parties like that. I probably won't say too much more about conflict stuff. You really got to put the time in and just watch those videos, read the chapter yourself, and I think it'll come together for you. Pause for questions before I talk about FOIA. Okay. COIA is the penalty for violating COIA is potentially a misdemeanor. So you get a little bit of time in the cooler for violating COIA. So don't play with that one. FOIA, the penalties are financial, but they are sizable in financial. There are also COIA penalties, civil penalties as well, financial penalties. But the FOIA penalties rack up much more, much quicker. The midpoint for a first-time FOIA violation is $1,000. So any time you violate it might be counted as individual counts. So the example I use, if somebody asks you for a every agenda for every meeting you have this year, and you have 5 meetings, that might be 5 counts of FOIA violations. So I know I jumped in the middle of the violations, but that was just to perk your ears up to make sure you're paying attention. FOIA is really about 2 things: public access to records and public access to meetings. So in terms of records, I want you to assume that anything that you're taking in your furtherance of your work on this public body is a public record. What that means is if a member of the public asks you for a copy of it, or asks this body or subcommittee for a copy of it, they are entitled to have a copy of it. They're entitled to a code compliant response within 5 days. So in terms of you, what does that mean for you? I don't think you necessarily need to respond to a FOIA request yourself, but you need to alert your staff in the governor's office that someone has contacted you about receiving documents, copies of documents, etc. And I want to alert you, a FOIA request does not need to be in writing, nor does it need to cite a code section. Someone could bump into you at the grocery store, hopefully while still socially distanced safely, and say, I heard you're on tap. I'm really curious about this. Could you send me the minutes of your last meeting? That's enough. And at that point, you need to move on and tell your staff, I have a FOIA request from this person. Here's their contact information. Please resolve this for me. Once you take that step, I think you're okay. I don't think you need to fulfill the request yourself, but you need to pass it on to the parties that are actually going to respond to the request. So as long as you assume everything you do in your furtherance of this, of your work in this office are fine, or are included in as public record, I think you'll adopt a mindset going forward that'll keep you from accidentally or inadvertently violating FOIA. I want you to also assume that your email that you're going to use, any email that's related to this, is not private. That's now a public record, a public document, so be careful what you put in public record. I don't want you to be secretive, but I want you to be alert and aware of what you're committing to record. You can very unintentionally include some information that you probably should have included. And I'm thinking about if you're dealing with somebody who's a researcher. Maybe the researcher is not, they're confident in their data, but they're not ready to share it yet. Or maybe it's a trade secret about a new style of device or machinery. Or maybe it's just some sensitive information. It's a bunch of personal information, bank records or something else like that, case numbers that are not necessarily dangerous themselves, but they're only willing to share them to a certain point. Well, if those are now in your email or now in your custody, those are going to be public records. That doesn't mean you can't take them in, but it means that you need to think about what it means when you take them in. You probably got to tell the person you're working with, hey, there's a chance this could come out. And if they're not comfortable with that, you might need to contact your staff again, and you can work out, is there a way to protect this from a FOIA search? So there are pages and pages of exemptions to FOIA that sometimes we can fit those into, but we don't want to use those improperly. We don't want to exclude the public from what they have a right to. We also don't want to chill anyone who would want to cooperate with a public body like this for fear of spreading something that wasn't meant to be shared with the public. Okay, I'm going to pause there if anybody has anything. Questions, comments, after that. Okay, I'm going to recommend that unless you have a government email account that's assigned to you for this public body, you create a new email account just for your work on tech. And it can be just as simple as first name, last name, TAC at whatever your favorite email client is. So maybe it's Whitney Catchmark, TAC at yahoo.com, Tom Krabs, TAC at gmail.com, or whatever other email server client you might want to use. That doesn't protect you entirely, but you can kind of keep yourself from mixing content. You can keep yourself from sending a personal, something you do in your private life from your TAC account and vice versa. Don't mix the streams across the streams if you're a Ghostbuster fan. That'll keep you in the right mindset, so you're more alert of what is in play and what is not in play. Okay. In terms of public meetings, anytime 3 or more of you are going to be discussing public business, that is a public meeting. Okay, so anytime there's a public meeting, the public needs proper access to it, and right now that means they have to have the same access, like electronic access you have. They have to have notice 3 days in advance. That notice needs to be posted on a publicly available central calendar. Typically, that's the Commonwealth calendar. And if you have a website, it needs to be posted on the website. Now, you probably don't have access to all that, so what does that mean? If you're going to meet, you got to talk to your staff. You cannot have an impromptu meeting. You cannot have a conference call that doesn't involve, the public or a public dial-in number. You got to include the public. So beforehand, you got to give your staff at least 3 days. And I know that they're busy too, so I'm going to give them a couple more days. Tell them in advance, we want to meet on these days. Give them time to set these things up, especially if things are changing with COVID. We might want to change some of these up and actually visit some sites or have a forum or something like that. These things are all possible, but you got to work through your staff. This also means do not accidentally have a public meeting, right? Don't be at, don't go to the park and bump into 2 other TAC members and start talking about people you'd like to have at the next meeting, right? Now you're talking 3 of you talking about board business, and no one from the public is there. No one had noticed that you guys were going to be at the park talking about this. Don't do that. Now, it doesn't become a public meeting just because there are 3 of you. Back in the before times, I used to make a reference to something like going to a movie theater, which maybe those won't exist anymore, or going to a softball game or a baseball game. Just because all the TAC members go to something doesn't make it a public meeting. You can if you all turn to each other and start talking about TAC business. So it's that union between the number and the content. Okay. Do not use mass emails to contact more than 1 board member. Don't do it. You can accidentally trigger a meeting by emailing back and forth too many times, too rapidly between so many members. To use the blind copy if you have to email everyone or send it to your staff for distribution. You use the blind copy, no one can respond. Only people can respond back to you, making it a one-on-one conversation versus a reply all, which might involve 3 or more, or maybe the entire board. That's the old blind copy rule. I know we went through a whole lot in about 20 minutes, but that's what they brought me in here for. Any questions? Don't be shy. Don't be scared. If you want clarification on a point, there's no stupid questions because it's your bank account, not mine, that's in peril. Okay. Jeff, I think that's all you had, all the time you gave me. Is there anything else you'd like me to handle right now?
No, that was excellent. Thank you so much, Justin, for taking time and boiling it down.
Can I give one more point? I guess sure. 2 more points. There are 2 public bodies known as the FOIA Council and the COIA Council, especially in terms of the FOIA Council. Only because I've worked with them more. They are really responsive. They have a database of searchable opinions. So if you have a question about something, chances are someone's had a similar question, and you can go there and search the database and see what else has happened. And if you get that advice, 1, it'll keep you from making a mistake. But especially in the case of the COIA Council, if you get written advice from the COIA Council and you follow it in good faith, you can't be hit with a stiff penalty. So it pays to check things. It pays not to guess, right? The COIA Council is also super astute. I don't want to make it sound like they're not capable. I just have not run into COIA questions as much as I've run into FOIA questions. So I've only had to use them a fraction of the time. I have nothing but good things to say about both of them. And that's that.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, Justin, and I'll turn it to Tom to provide closing remarks.
All right. Thanks a lot, Justin. Thank you as well. Ed, closing out here, I'd like to thank Jeff again. Thanks a lot for getting this together. This is because of what Justin just described. Making these public meetings is no easy effort. We'll have to make sure that we keep our integrity with that throughout. Jeff, thanks for your hard work to get that done and everything else you're doing in your administrative and advisory capacity. Kevin Du Bois, thanks for taking notes today. I do not have a next meeting scheduled yet. I wanted to get some feedback today, though we had less time than I'd hoped. What we will be doing is sending out a Duke poll like we did for this meeting. Expect another meeting in March. We have a whole of TAC meeting on February 26th. We'll find out what we learned there, and then we'll set up for another meeting following that in March with plenty of heads up. Meanwhile, though, you should expect contact from Jeff and me relative to shaping towards the point that Colonel Kinsman made very well. Focus of our group ahead, getting unity in that focus, and making sure that we're well defined in what our mission is moving out, that we have the right people at the table, that we're addressing the right networks, and that we're working efficiently and effectively across the whole of the effort that was presented on that org chart earlier. So expect to reach out both by email and by doodle. Thank you once again. And unless there are any other comments, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Jeff?
Tom, I wanted to just give the folks here, Madison and Stephanie, introduce themselves, earlier. They did not register to make a public comment, but I understand we're running over a little bit, but I wanted to extend the courtesy to Madison and Stephanie to say something if they would like to, since we only have a couple folks here. So let me go with Madison first.
I have no public comment. Thank you for asking.
All right, thanks. And Stephanie.
Same here. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. All right, thanks, Tom. Proceed.
Thank you, Jeff, very much. And are there any final comments that anyone would like to make? All right, thank you. I request a motion to adjourn. Anyone? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
So moved.
I've got a motion and a second to adjourn. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Look forward to working with you ahead.
Thank you so much. Aaron, I can stay on if there's any wrap up.
Not necessary. You can just hit the X and say end meeting for all.
All right. Thank you very much again.
You're welcome. It was a good meeting.
All right. Thanks. All right. Here we go.